in Petruzzi, news for local area and around the world. We had some of the most interesting guests on the show, some of the leading sports people in the show, people in the field of psychology, other related fields. Today we have a fascinating guest who's going to give insight into UK women enticed back to sport after a bumper of summer events. There's been a lot of sport. We've seen the Women's Ashes, Wimbledon, the Women's Football World Cup as well. So there's been a lot of sport events this year, and today's guest is going to get a bit of an insight into some research. So Carly Telford on the show, great to have you on board.
Thanks for having me, Jimmy.
So Carly, can you tell us a bit about the research about getting back into sports and how the summer may inspire women to go back into sport?
Yeah, of course. So Sure, who are a partner with Chelsea and who are a huge partner and probably many of us have in our households, deodorant company, they did a massive bit of research during the summer of sport and found out that 59% of women have now gone back into sport due to being inspired over the summer period with the multiple kinds of sport we had on. So anything from cricket to football to athletics to Wimbledon. We had some amazing inspiring athletes on show, and yeah, it's got, like I say, nearly 60% of women back into to pick up a bat, a ball again, and try sport out, which is fantastic.
Absolutely, and I've sort of noticed in the research that a high percentage of women over 45 play sports when they were younger but dropped out as a teenager. Do you have any sort of thoughts on that yourself, Carly, in terms of the dropout ratio?
Yeah, of course. I think I don't sit high like that in that category just yet in terms of I'm not 45, but I remember going into secondary school and you were kind of ushered into playing netball, dance, hockey. They were the kind of sports that we were encouraged to play, and not football. So if you did like football or any other sports, is very much like kind of frowned upon. So I think that stopped a lot of women playing football, especially at school. And then once you're not doing it at school, it's kind of, even after school, there wasn't a lot of clubs you could join. So I think having programs like the Breaking Limits program that we're probably going to speak about, where you can access opportunities outside of school if your school doesn't, but also the legacy piece that the Lioness have done since winning the Euros is where they've merged with the government and making sure that football is access to all schools for all ages across the board, across the country is going to be huge for our sport.
No, absolutely, and just sort of discussing more about the Breaking Limits program, I've noticed in the research some of the reasons for non-participation is maybe not feeling good enough to take part. And I mean, we sort of spoke about the Lionesses and obviously sort of like some high-profile sporting events, but sport can be for everybody of all abilities. You can enjoy it as well. And can you give us a bit of insight in terms of the Breaking Limits program, how what that entails and how people can understand more about it?
Yeah, of course. So Sure, you can check them out on Instagram at Sure Sport UK, and then on their website is where a majority of their details are, which is suredeodorant.co.uk. They started a program a few years ago, which was a global campaign, but since having the FIFA Women's World Cup this summer and obviously realising how popular women's sport has become, they kind of wanted women to feel more empowered, more confident about kind of stepping outside and wanting to play sport again, especially football. So they come up with a series of kind of modules and events that girls can attend, girls and women, because it's not kind of age specific, where you can kind of attend, whether you're want to be a coach or you're maybe a teacher or you're just in the community, whether you've played football previously or you're just starting your journey and maybe you're inspired to be the next Lioness. You can kind of go on the website, check that out, and it's an opportunity, it's an area, it's a space where it's just for women, and you can kind of go and attend those events, those modules, and kind of upscale or just find some fun in sport again, which is, at the end of the day, it's why we all play sport, isn't it? You play and you join something because you find it enjoyable. So creating that space, I think, has been so important, and we've been very lucky to work alongside Sure and making sure that happens.
Absolutely, and we've seen some sporting role models as well over the summertime as well. And I know in the sort of research it talks about British women agree that society needs to promote female sporting role models. What do you think, and it might be outside the scope of the conversation, but what are your thoughts, Carl? You've obviously participated at the highest level, and what do you think that we can do more of to promote female sporting role models?
I think it's just about making them visible, isn't it? I think when we started our journey about trying to have a legacy piece, about not just being successful on the pitch and lifting trophies, it's kind of like, what do we want to leave behind when the likes of myself potentially retire and go into the next part of our lives. But we've left a piece that one was to leave the shirt in a better place that you left it for the next person that stepped into it, but two, off the pitch, what does that look like? And I think it's about visibility. I think we have an opportunity to inspire so many young girls that have never seen the likes of us before, maybe on TV. And that's the thing. I think when I was younger, my kind of inspirational athletes were men. It was a David Beckham, it was a Shea Given, it was a whoever else it was. I didn't have many female athletes because I'd never see, they're not on TV, they're not on mainstream media. But now I think there's a variety of women you can see and watch on TV. And I think if you can see it, you can be it. And I think we say that without realising actually how powerful that is. So I think media played a huge role, but can always play more of a role in getting more kind of publicity around the girls, sharing their journey, sharing their struggles, and realising that what it takes to be a professional athlete, and how whether you want to be a professional athlete yourself and start your journey, or whether you just want to go on a different venture, maybe you're just a businesswoman that wants to feel empowered by how the girls talk about politics and how they represent themselves. There's so many different kind of ventures, and we know that we have an effect on. So I think that it's brands and campaigns getting on board with the girls and helping them build their profiles, but also the media have a huge role to play in making sure that we're on mainstream media and people can consume it as much as they would consume men's sport.
Absolutely. And just out of interest, sort of, Carly, we have a lot of listeners, people who play, but people who sort of may be considering playing sport. Is there any sort of thing that you could sort of share? Obviously, sort of like your journey. What was your sort of motivation in terms of going into sort of football? And is there anything you can sort of share with any sort of young person listening who's sort of thinking, okay, well, I'm considering joining the club, but I'm not quite sure, how to go about it. I might feel a bit nervous about going to a club for the first time.
Yeah, no, I have plenty of experience where one of the probably best but probably most daunting things I did was go to a goalkeeping camp, which I didn't realise that I would be the only girl there out of 90 boys. And that was very daunting, but I backed myself, and plus I just loved it so much. I think that if you enjoy something, I think the beauty of it now is that there's so many spaces for just only girl things, and I think if you get all the girls and women's things where when you go to these events you just see people like yourself, so it takes that kind of feeling like you're the only one or one of very few, and you might not be good enough straight away. But for me, it's just about enjoying it. When I did my reflection piece of retiring, and I kind of put out a statement, I said I started playing football because me and the lads would knock on each other's doors, we'd take a ball down to a local field and have a kick around, and I was just having fun with my mates. And I look back on my career and I was like, for 20 years, I think that's what I did at all different levels, from playing international football in a World Cup to having a kick about on a Monday night. Like every time I went out and played football, I just had fun with my friends. And yes, there are pressures and social pressures and stuff around that, but if you can strip it all back at the end of the day, and that's what's so beautiful about our game, it's one ball, it's two goals, it's a field or an area, and everyone's just there to have fun. So I think that, yeah, if you're thinking about it or on the cusp of thinking about it, I'd just say, like, get down there. I can guarantee you'll walk away from it saying you had a good time. You'll make some new friends. Some of my friends, my best friend Jill Scott, we met when we were 13 years old, and we're still best mates now, and I got to share that journey with her, and I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't gone to that club or joined that team when I was 13. So it's given me some of the best experiences of my life, and some of the best friends I'll ever make. So yeah, I'd just say and do it, enjoy it, and whatever path it may take you on, just make sure you're enjoying it. That's the main thing. Absolutely.
That's some sort of great perspectives and point of views. And was there a point, sort of, Carly, for you when you sort of sensed you could play at the very highest level? I mean, just out of interest, really. I'm always interested in speaking to. Yeah. Was there a point where you thought, well, I can make it at the very highest level?
Yeah, I think it's a really hard one as well, because I probably, from a very young age, I got identified as being a very good goalkeeper. I was playing first team football when I was 14, which is not allowed now. Probably shouldn't have been back then, but again, the FA was in its infancy. So I knew at 14 I was playing with 30-year-old women, so I must have been okay. And I was recruited by Sunderland Academy, and then I got recruited by. And I was playing under 17 football then for England. I made my first team debut for England when I was 18. Again, that's usually a good indicator that the coach and everyone around you thinks you must be good enough. So that was really good. I think the tipping point for me was I didn't know, and my parents didn't know whether it was actually going to be a career. So you kind of hit 18, 19 and you're expected to go to university because you need to earn an income. That didn't exist in women's football. Thankfully it does now, which is really nice. But they were probably the tipping points for me, which I hope never exist for people. But I would always say that no matter what level you're playing at football, and I even encourage the girls now while I'm sat in Cobham training ground and I speak to the girls at Chelsea, I'm like, are you doing stuff outside of football? It doesn't last forever, blah blah blah. I sound like a very old person, but yeah, I think that I think from a very young age I knew I was probably destined to go on to do good things just because of the level I was playing at. But I think it's about who I surrounded myself with, because there's lots of people, there's a lot of dark days, lots of injuries I had, lots of times where I thought I was there and didn't quite make it. I didn't actually make my first World Cup appearance until I was 31, so I had to wait a long time for it. And sometimes you do think, what's the point, or should I give up, or am I ever going to make it? But I look back, and when I did get left out of squads, or I did get released from clubs, sometimes I reflected and was like, there's actually no place I'd rather be, so I'd rather be there and maybe not play than be sat at home wishing I was there. So yeah, I never gave up, and I'd say if you want to be the best, that's probably a message that all of us who have probably made it to the top of our sports, when we've had our maybe our barrier points or points where we didn't think we were quite going to get there, is just to never give up and keep knocking on the door and believe in yourself.
Absolutely, and that's a transferable skill, I would imagine, across other areas of life too, whether somebody's studying or trying to build a business, or make their way in life.
Exactly.
Yeah. And just sort of finally, you've been sort of kind with time, and it's been great to sort of speak to you. It's just, I know you sort of mentioned where people could have a look at the program. Can you sort of just signpost them again in terms of if they want to know more about the actual program itself? Where they can.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you're of a younger generation, I'm sure you'd probably rather go on Instagram than on the internet, but it's at Suresport UK. You can hit them up there, and there's loads of information on their Instagram page of what they're doing now and what they've previously done and what they're looking to do in the future. And if you do want to go on the website, where there is a lot more information, it's suredeodorant.co.uk, and it's the Breaking Limits programme, and they will point in the right direction of all the information you need to know to get into your local community. And like I've said, is either get back into football because you've missed it and you love it and you're inspired, or to start your journey and maybe be the next Lioness.
That's fantastic, Carla. It's been a really interesting and informative interview. I'll definitely sort of check it out, the program myself as well, and have a look and forward it on. Thanks again for your time, and I wish you all the best.
Appreciate it, Jimmy. Take care.